Shalom, my friends. I am Rabbi David, and today I am going to reveal the sacred, dangerous, and transformative truth about the man you think you know as Israel's greatest king. We are going to journey into the dark side of King David, and in his shadow, you will discover the secret to unlocking your own ultimate power. But before I unveil this hidden teaching, a teaching that will forever change how you see your own flaws and failures, I need you to make a declaration of courage. Go to the comments right now and write, "I will face my shadow." This is not just a comment, it is a spiritual contract. It is your signal to the universe that you are done hiding from the parts of yourself that hold the keys to your greatness. Our mission here is to gather an army of 100,000 souls dedicated to mastering this spiritual technology of radical self-acceptance. If you are ready to be one of them, to stop living a life of quiet hypocrisy and start living in raw, authentic power, subscribe to this channel now. And for those who are truly serious about accelerating their journey, for a limited time, I am opening the doors to the Torah Millionaire Business School for just $299. This is where I unveil the complete system for turning your inner world into outer wealth. The doors are closing soon. The link is in the comments. Now, let us begin. I understand the feeling of being a fraud. I know what it's like to stand before your family, your community, your employees, and project an image of strength and righteousness, while inside, a secret is eating you alive. I know this because I lived it. Many years ago, before this channel, before the business school, I was a leader in my community. People looked to me for guidance. They saw me as a pillar of integrity. But I made a decision, a choice born of ego, and a momentary lapse in judgment that betrayed that trust. I won't go into the details, because the specifics are not what matter. What matters is the feeling of a cold stone in my stomach every morning, the shame that washed over me whenever someone would praise my character. It was a private hell, a prison of my own making. I felt like a hypocrite, a complete and utter fraud. I had built my life on a foundation of Torah principles, of honesty, of service, and with one selfish act, I felt I had dynamited the entire structure. I tried to fix it with the tools the world gives you. I tried to rationalize it. I tried to forget it. I tried to overcompensate by being even more good, by working harder, by giving more charity. But it was like trying to patch a gaping wound with a tiny bandage. The poison of my secret failure was still there, infecting everything. The joy was gone from my work. The connection was gone from my relationships. I was a hollow man, a walking ghost, in the robes of a leader. The enemy we are all fighting is what I call the righteousness trap. It is the most insidious lie in all of personal development and spirituality. It is the belief that to be good, to be holy, to be worthy, you must be perfect. It is the whisper that tells you that spiritual people don't get angry, that successful people don't have crippling doubts, that righteous people are never tempted by their darkest desires. And because we believe this lie, we take our flaws, our mistakes, our shadows, and we lock them in the basement of our consciousness. We pretend they don't exist. The hidden mechanism of this enemy is that the shadow, when ignored, does not disappear. It metastasizes. It grows stronger in the dark. It feeds on our shame and our fear. And one day, when you are under pressure, when you are tired, when you are not vigilant, that basement door will fly open, and the monster you have been feeding with your denial will come out and burn your life to the ground. The cost of surrendering to this enemy is not just a life of quiet desperation. It is a life of catastrophic self-destruction. You see it everywhere. The pastor who preaches fidelity and is caught in an affair. The financial guru who preaches integrity and is caught in a fraud. These were not evil men. They were men who were caught in the righteousness trap. They believed they could not have a shadow, and so their shadow consumed them. But what if I told you that the code to escaping the righteousness trap was embedded in the Torah thousands of years ago in the life of the greatest king who ever lived? We are taught to see King David as a hero, the boy who slew Goliath, the poet who wrote the Psalms, the king who united Israel. But the Torah, in its radical honesty, refuses to show us a saint. It shows us a man of immense light and immense darkness. Turn to the second book of Samuel, chapter 11. It is one of the most shocking passages in the entire Bible. David, at the height of his power, is walking on his rooftop. He sees a woman bathing. Her name is Bathsheba. She is beautiful, and she is the wife of another man, Uriah, one of David's most loyal soldiers. David does not fight the impulse. He does not turn away. He sends for her. The text is brutally concise. He lay with her. This is not a romance. This is an abuse of power. It is adultery. But the darkness does not stop there. Bathsheba becomes pregnant. And now David, the righteous king, the man after God's own heart, enters into a cover-up. He tries to trick Uriah into sleeping with his wife to hide the paternity. But Uriah, in his loyalty, refuses to go home while his men are at war. And so David's darkness deepens. He writes a letter, seals it, and gives it to Uriah himself. The letter contains a death sentence. It instructs his general, Joab, to put Uriah on the front lines of the fiercest battle and then to withdraw, leaving him to be killed. David, the hero, becomes a murderer to cover his sin. This is not a minor flaw. This is a catastrophic moral failure. The Kabbalists teach that every human being is created with two inclinations, the *Yetzer HaTov*, the inclination for good, and the *Yetzer Hara*, the inclination for evil. The modern world translates *Yetzer Hara* as evil, but this is a mistake. It is not evil. It is raw, untamed energy. It is the engine of desire, of ambition, of passion. It is the very force that drove David to become king. But when it is not channeled, when it is not integrated, when it is allowed to run wild, it becomes monstrous. David's story reveals a terrifying and liberating secret. Your greatest strengths and your greatest sins are born from the exact same source. But the story does not end with his sin. It ends with his *teshuvah*, his repentance. When the prophet Nathan confronts David with his crime, David does not deny it. He does not rationalize it. He does not blame Bathsheba or Uriah or his circumstances. He says 5 words that change everything. I have sinned against the Lord. And then he writes Psalm 51, one of the most powerful expressions of repentance in all of human literature. He writes, "Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me." He does not ask God to erase his past. He asks God to transform his future. This is the technology of *teshuvah*. It is not about becoming sinless. It is about becoming whole. The Talmud teaches that in the place where a Baal Teshuvah*, a master of repentance, stands, even the completely righteous cannot stand. Why? Because the righteous person has never faced their shadow. They have never wrestled with their darkness. They have never had to integrate the broken pieces of themselves. The Baal Teshuvah* has descended into hell and climbed back out. They have a depth, a power, a compassion that the innocent can never possess. This is why David, despite his catastrophic failures, is called a man after God's own heart. Not because he was perfect, but because he was real. That night, after studying the story of David and Bathsheba, I felt a crack in the foundation of my own prison of shame. For months, I had seen my failure as proof that I was a fraud. But here was David, the anointed of God, the author of the Psalms, a man whose darkness was infinitely blacker than my own. And yet, he was not cast aside by God. He was not defined by his failure. I made a decision. I would stop trying to be a saint and start trying to be a man like David. I performed the very ritual I am about to teach you. I took out a piece of paper and I wrote down my failure in all its ugly detail. I did not make excuses. I did not minimize it. I owned it. And then I said out loud, "This is my shadow. This is a part of me. It is not all of me." At first, nothing happened externally, but internally, a universe shifted. The crushing weight of my hypocrisy began to lift. The shame did not disappear, but it was no longer my master. It became a teacher. The next day, I went to the people I had wronged, and I confessed. I did not ask for forgiveness. I simply stated the truth of what I had done and the pain it had caused. It was the hardest thing I have ever done. But in that moment of absolute vulnerability, I was no longer a fraud. I was real. And from that place of authenticity, I could begin to rebuild, not on the illusion of my perfection, but on the solid ground of my wholeness. I had not changed my past, but I had changed my relationship to it, and my future was forced to follow. Now, let me give you the practical application. I call it the Shadow Integration Protocol. It is a 3-step process to turn your greatest shame into your greatest power. Asterisk, asterisk. Step 1. The Confession of Imperfection. Asterisk, asterisk. Every morning, before your feet hit the floor, you will look in the mirror and say these words out loud. I am not perfect. I have a shadow, and my power is hidden in my darkness. This is not an excuse to do evil. It is a declaration of reality. You are giving up the exhausting, impossible job of being a saint. You are accepting your own humanity. The reason this works is that shame only has power when it is secret. The moment you speak it, even just to yourself, you begin to reclaim your power from it. You are no longer its victim. You are its observer. Asterisk, asterisk. Step 2. The Sacred Mirror. Asterisk, asterisk. You will take one quality about yourself that you despise, one part of your shadow. It could be your anger, your pride, your jealousy, your laziness, your fear. You will write it at the top of a page, and then you will ask one question. What is the holy spark hidden in this darkness? You see, the Kabbalah teaches that nothing is truly evil. Everything was created by God, which means everything contains a spark of holiness. Your job is to find it. Anger is the raw energy for justice. Pride is the seed of self-worth. Jealousy is a signpost pointing to your deepest desires. Laziness is a signal that you are out of alignment with your purpose. You will write down the holy spark, hidden within your darkness. Asterisk, asterisk. Step 3. The action of integration. Asterisk, asterisk. You will take one small concrete action that day to express the holy spark, not the shadow. If your shadow is anger, you will not lash out at your family. You will use that fiery energy to make a call you've been avoiding, to defend someone who is being treated unfairly, or to have a difficult but necessary conversation. If your shadow is pride, you will not boast. You will use your confidence to mentor someone, to teach what you know, to lift someone else up. This is the great secret. You do not destroy the asterisk Yetzer Hara asterisk. You cannot. It is part of you. You must learn to ride the dragon, not slay it. You channel its fire for holy purposes. Now let me tell you about 3 students of mine who transformed their lives through this protocol. Story number 1. Michael. He was a brilliant CEO, but his arrogance was toxic. He belittled his employees. He refused to listen to feedback, and his company was bleeding talent. He began the Shadow Integration Protocol. His shadow was pride. The holy spark he identified was his deep desire for excellence and his ability to see a higher potential. For his action of integration, instead of criticizing his team, he started a daily email where he publicly praised one employee for their excellence. Within 6 months, his company culture had completely transformed. His revenue doubled. His best people stayed. He was still proud, but now his pride was a source of inspiration, not intimidation. Story number 2, Rachel. She was a therapist who was secretly battling crippling anxiety. She felt like a complete fraud, helping others with their mental health, while she herself was falling apart. Her shadow was fear. When she applied the sacred mirror, she discovered that her fear was actually a profound sensitivity to suffering, a gift that made her an extraordinary healer. She began to share her own struggles with anxiety in her sessions, not as a confession of weakness, but as a bridge of connection. Her practice exploded. Within 1 year, she had a 6-month waiting list. Her clients didn't want a perfect therapist, they wanted a real one. Story number 3, David. Yes, his name was David, just like the king. He was a real estate investor who had made millions, but he was ruthless. He would exploit loopholes, pressure tenants, and destroy competitors without a second thought. His shadow was greed. But when he looked for the holy spark, he realized that his greed was actually an intense desire for security, born from a childhood of poverty. He redirected that energy. He started a foundation that provided affordable housing for low-income families. Within 3 years, he had housed over 500 families. His wealth continued to grow. But now it was fueled by purpose, not just profit. He told me, "Rabbi, I'm still driven. I still want more. But now I want more impact, not just more money." Now, I know the objection that is rising in your mind. But Rabbi, isn't this dangerous? Isn't this just giving myself a license to be a bad person? I understand that fear. It is the voice of the righteousness trap. But here is the truth you must grasp. You are already a bad person, and you are already a good person. You are both. You contain multitudes. Pretending you don't have a dark side is the most dangerous thing you can do, because it guarantees that your dark side will control you from the shadows. This protocol is not about indulgence. It is about integration. It is about bringing your darkness into the light, not to let it run wild, but to harness its immense power for good. The Talmud teaches that the greatest saints are not those who have no yetzer hara, but those who have the most powerful yetzer hara and have learned to sublimate it into an even more powerful force for holiness. Your darkness is not the enemy of your light. It is the fuel for your light. Stop trying to extinguish the fire within you. Learn to be a master of the flame. So here is my challenge to you. For the next 21 days, you will commit to the Shadow Integration Protocol. Here are your 3 immediate, non-negotiable actions. 1. Tonight, before you sleep, identify your primary shadow trait, the one that causes you the most shame, and write it down. 2. Tomorrow morning, you will perform Step 1 and Step 2. You will declare your imperfection and identify the holy spark within your shadow. 3. Tomorrow, you will take one small conscious action to express that holy spark in a positive way. And here is a bonus tip for those who are truly brave. Share your shadow trait with one person you trust completely, not for their approval, not for their absolution, but simply to break the power of the secret. The Torah teaches, as water reflects a face, so a heart reflects a person. When you show your true face, you give others permission to do the same. And now, I want to end with a blessing. May you be blessed with the courage of King David to face the totality of who you are. May you have the wisdom to see the holy sparks hidden in your darkest corners. And may you have the strength to integrate your shadow and your light, to become not a perfect person, but a whole person, a person of terrifying and beautiful power. I am praying for you. Shalom.